means you'll be able to watch this on all the various platforms, on your Twitches and your MySpaces and your Ellos and your Andos and and your I don't know, Witherspoons Live, whatever platform that you currently are watching on. You may, of course, be watching on Periscope and Twitch. You may be watching on YouTube. If you are a subscriber, you've gotten a notification saying that we're now live. By all means, jump in on the comments. I know that we're not going to get a massive audience for this live because we are kind of throwing this out into the ether. But yes, this is a little bit of an incidental episode because I wasn't able to do a show on the Sunday because at 6 o'clock, around the time when I would have been broadcasting on Sunday, I would have been asleep in a service station car park, driving home from Wales Comic Con from Telford, because it was a bloody long day, bloody long weekend, but a lot of fun. And that's what we're going to talk about on today's show. Joined by Mr. Mark Serby. Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yes, I understand your pain of having a little kip on the way home. Telford is a long way from you. It's an even longer way from me. I left the house because I went Saturday, you went Sunday, so we'll talk about it in a minute. But I was up at 5 a.m. and I got to the convention at 10:10.
Ouch. Yes, but this is what happens when you're living down in the civilized area of where the capital. Out here in the districts, it's a little bit more awkward. Obviously, we have to ask our handlers to leave the district. We are not wanting to join the Hunger Games. We are wanting to go to Wales Comic Con. And it can be a bit awkward, but we got there. Obviously, you did the Saturday, I did the Sunday, so we did have two very different experiences of this show. Very quickly to talk about Wales Comic Con and about why it was something that I definitely wanted to attend, is because of basically the way that Wales Comic Con has grown over the last couple of years. It started in a very small venue. It then moved to this gymnasium in Rexford, which it has grown a very loyal and enthusiastic following, but it grew way beyond that particular venue. They did their best to kind of accommodate into that space. A lot of queuing outside, which at this time of year, you're going to get very wet and very rained on and very windy. So basically, Jamie Milner from Wales Comic Con and the team decided to make a change and move to a dedicated convention space, which was the International Centre in Telford, which is not in Wales, but just over the border, considering that you can smell Newport from Telford. It's that close. I mean, I did quite like, there was a comment on one of the panels, and I'm going to forget his name again because I'm an idiot. The guy who plays Constantine on the CW. Go on, help me out, Mark. Do you know his name off the top of your head?
Matt Ryan?
That's the guy, Matt Ryan. He joined the DC Universe panel on the Sunday, and he was explaining how he had looked into the history of Telford, and it did used to be a part of Wales in decades, in centuries gone by. So he was basically saying that no, this was not Wales Comic Con taking over Telford. This was more reclaiming it for Wales for one weekend. So I thought that was a nice touch. So that was cool. Right. So obviously, like I say, I had a different experience on the Sunday, slightly quieter day. Saturday, by all accounts, was manic on various levels. Away you go. Talk about your experience, sir.
I got there just after 10 a.m. and I have to say, initial thoughts were, where do I go? I have no idea where to go. There was nobody with any megaphone or any signs. There were signs, but you had to literally walk down towards the convention center to see the signs. They were not big, huge signs or anything. However, there were at least two lines snaking all the way up the road, all the way up past the travel lodge and everything else like that. And it didn't really help because nobody really knew where to go. That was part of the problem, is nobody was being told. The poor guy who was working on the car park, who was just instructing cars where to go and park, was being asked all of these questions. He had no idea either. But it wasn't very well put together in that regard. I think they needed people outside with megaphones. I think they needed more staff outside, because people were coming in all the time, because they're like, well, it opens at 10. We'll just turn up just after 10. And there was thousands of, well, it looked like thousands. There clearly wasn't, but there were so many people. I'm very lucky that I got in quite early. Thank you to a very nice press pass. But it was weird to stand there and watch how it was being dealt, because the area that I went into was different to the main door, and the main door was really strangely laid out. It looked like they had about 3 people scanning codes, and that was it. And I'm like, no, no, no. Have you seen how many people? It should be all hands on deck. It really did seem like they hadn't really thought about how to deal with this many people. And from by all accounts, these lines were turning up hours before doors were opening. I mean, I saw some tweets from people who were saying, look, I'm in the queue already. And this was like 6 a.m. And I'm like, well, you know, you've got to get ready for these happenings. You know, you've got to be prepared for all eventualities. So I was slightly disappointed to see that even before going in, it was difficult to know where you go. And I think that was one of the main concerns for a lot of attendees. Well, where do we go? How do we get in? Once in, I've got to say, different experience. Lovely place, really nicely laid out. All the guests all the way around the room on the walls, vendors in the middle as well. They've got rooms off for Q&As and photo shoots and VIP area and everything else like that. I thought it was really nicely laid out. But I was in quite early, and it was only around 11:30 where all of a sudden you started to feel it's getting bumper to bumper with people. But I have to say, for the amount of like the guests that were there, and obviously there was a lot of people there for Matt Smith and David Tennant, it seemed like line organization was pretty well put together. I mean, you and I, Leonard, have been to cons where line organization has been piss poor.
Very non-existent in places, yeah.
And this one, to me, felt like they knew what they were doing. Like they were, I saw a few lines that were capped, which was good. You know, it wasn't bleeding into other lines. They were certainly away from each other. They kept busy guests away from each other as well. So you'd have one big guest and then a sort of medium-sized guest, then another big guest. So you didn't have like this big throng of people. You could actually see things as well. And most importantly, actually, which is kind of funny because it did sort of happen, it didn't sort of happen, is you could take photos of the guests. Now, I've been to cons before where people have come up in front of the camera and gone, no photos. And you're like, I'm about 30 feet away. What the heck am I going to do? But somebody did wave to the person in front of me to say no photos of Zachary Levi. And then I think she turned around and realized, everybody's taking a photo of him. I'm just going to leave it. It's just pointless. But it was nice because they'd left enough room. So if you weren't in a line to get an autograph or a photograph, you could still get a sneaky photo on your phone or something like that. So that was kind of nice to actually be able to see the talent, because sometimes you go to these conventions and you can't see anything. You're like, there's somewhere in the distance behind all of these people and we'll get there and whatever else. But I thought it was very nicely laid out. It was all well put together. And yeah, I mean, you know, as a first time at Wales, it felt very much like, yeah, we're here. This is what we're going to do. And for 90% of it, I thought it worked. I don't know about you.
Well, I mean, certainly when it comes to the branding, let's look at the experiences that we shared, because the different days, different vibes, but certainly the approach of the con. There was certainly the communication with the local council, because there was lots of signage coming into the town about issues with parking, best places to park, that car park is going to be insane. Best to use this one, perhaps. So there was lots of the sort of the LCD information screens approaching Telford, which was, I thought, rather handy. So in that regard, I parked at the local shopping centre car park. cost me £1 for the day. I know for a fact that the Telford International Centre park itself, I think it was anywhere between £2 and £3 a day. So the parking was affordable. It was very much accommodating for people wanting to actually attend and travelling from a distance. Like you say, the actual approach to the building is very strange. You can see the International Centre, but the actual doors are kind of a sloping car park, and then it goes into a dip, which means the doors are down below the eye line, and you can't actually see what's going on. Considering how strong the branding is for Wales Comic Con, a few more banners or something, which would have been just handy to point in the direction. So even just kind of those sort of like those flowing in the wind kind of standy banners would have been just very handy to have, just to point in the direction of what's going on and where. I did speak to a couple of people, and I saw a couple of Facebook groups comment about the line management, especially when it came to people getting in at that early stage, like you said. And it did seem that it was just down to lack of staff. Apparently, by all accounts, they had allocated something in the region of 310, 320 members of staff for the actual event to manage lines, to point people in the right direction, to scan people in, basically to allocate them across the entire convention center. And I believe that also meant also people who were sort of like looking after guests behind the tables. However, on the Saturday, by all accounts, there was a massive drop-off. And some very strange and spurious kind of excuses as to why they weren't going to be making it. I stubbed my toe. My cat is feeling pale. It seemed very. There were a number of very lightweight excuses. When you have a dedicated team, when you have a group of people that you are looking after, that you are supporting, and perhaps giving a few perks to, that does provide a little bit of brand loyalty. But when your volunteers are literally getting nothing for the experience, they're not getting any of their transport paid for, no hotels, which that I can understand for volunteers, but certainly no sort of diesel or petrol allocations, no free access to anything, no selfie or maybe even just a signed photograph from somebody. They were getting nothing, and that's not going to help. So just on a staffing level, that I can understand was a major issue, especially on the Saturday as well. By all accounts, David Tennant was a big popular photo op guest first thing in the morning, and by all accounts, the line for David snaked from his holding pen area where the people were being placed, and then snaked around the front of the entrance, way beyond what they had actually allocated for the lineup. That all went an hour late because of, like I say, staff not being able to move things along. People weren't being told what was going on because there was nobody to tell them, and it just got very congested very, very quickly. And apparently they did not recover for the course of the day. Now, I went to London Film and Comic Con throughout the summer. This is a Showmasters event. It took place at the Earl's Court. It was my first time that I went to London Film and Comic Con and a Showmasters event in that venue. And it felt to me that everyone that was lining up for that particular event, and that is a true money extraction exercise. It's industrial level. It's very much a machine to get people in front of photos and to talk to guests, etc. But it's almost like the guests themselves already know how that machine works and organize themselves into lines and kind of just got on with it. Wales Comic Con isn't quite there yet, which means everyone was still very not sure of where to go. That doesn't help as well that it was a new venue, so people weren't sure where things were going to line up on a natural level. So it did feel, by all accounts, a little bit haphazard. So that I can certainly understand. But like you say, once the actual venue got settled into its groove and the crowds kind of got the sense of where everything was, It felt very relaxed. Certainly on the Sunday, the vibe was very positive. There was no real stress in the room that I could feel. You can usually feel an atmosphere of a room, a tone and a tenor to a convention. And I certainly on the Sunday, it didn't feel like there was too much in terms of stress and antagonistic kind of vibes. Also does help as well the way that the Telford International Centre is laid out. There's a central gangway. Oops, excuse me, is that you or me? Oh, that's me. I do apologise. Let me turn that off. That'll be Caroline. Yes, there you go. Wanting to say hello. So I'll get back to that. Bear with me a second. Yeah, that central gangway, you had people walking, the guests walking across, and fans could see them. So like from the gantry, and it almost like, oh, let's wave at the special people, looking down at us normals, down on so like reaching for scraps from the mega stars. It actually provided a nice little vibe as they were waving down at everyone and got everyone's excitement up. I thought that was a really nice touch. Yourself, Mark, what did you think about that? I mean,
Yeah, no,
obviously it was busier on the Saturday, so that obviously worked better to its advantage.
yeah, I am complete agreement. I thought it was very good, actually. It kind of reminded me of WWE entrances to a certain degree. And if they had have gone with, you know, like the sparklers and the fireworks and announcements and whatever else, it really would have been like wrestling entrances. But it works really well. I actually like how that's set up. And it's part of the building. So it's not like they've set it up themselves. But it works very nicely. And if you are cheeky enough, you can get a really good camera and just stand there and take loads of really good photos of people as they're walking down. I mean, it's brilliant. But yeah, I thought that was a nice little touch. It's
Possibly
something you don't.
could have done a little bit more with it, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. There's no reason why not. But as we keep saying, first year,
Yes,
they're
absolutely.
finding their way. But yeah, I liked it. It was, you know, I've never seen before. It's something interesting. It's something different. It's something unique to that as well. Yeah, I was quite impressed with it. I have to say, it stood out.
Absolutely. We do have a couple of comments coming in already. Thank you very much indeed to Michael P. How far did you have to drive? My drive was about 110 miles, so about a 2-hour drive for me, M62, M6, and straight into Telford. For yourself, I'm guessing M1 and across?
No, went on the train.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
And the train was basically a train from mine into London, across London, a train out of London to Birmingham, change at Birmingham to Telford, and then walk from the station to the International Centre, which was about a 20-minute walk through, bizarrely, a shopping centre.
Yes, I think that'll be the one that I parked in.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's no, fair enough. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know the layout of Telford. I've never been to it before. Hotels were close by all accounts. It's a well acclimatized area for this kind of event. So I don't see why they shouldn't be returning for 2020 in this particular venue. We've got ourselves Andrew Dickinson. Returning staff for next year will be low then. I don't know. I don't think so, actually, because if they keep the same level of guests, and I don't see why they shouldn't, because they have built up a good reputation with the guests that they've gotten in. It may just be a case of the volunteers just like giving up on that. It's the first one. Oh, maybe not. We'll just see how it goes, and then they'll return. But I think those people that did sort of drop out this first year will be given short thrift, and I hope they would be, because that's just down to come on, it's loyalty. But like I say, I think there should be some kind of recompense for someone that's making their efforts to go and help at a convention if they are not. You know, if they are the infrastructure for the convention. At the end of the day, they need to have some kind of give back. At the end of the day, he's also saying, yeah, the last 50 miles take ages. Maybe, but the way that I traveled across, Google took me very creative way from the M6 to Telford. So I saw some very pretty parts of the world. So I didn't complain too much. Been to the IPMS a couple of times, needs a trunk road. I don't think Wales Comic Con has the sway to build that anytime soon. That I think is just down to Telford and the local council. But there we go. Oh, and he's also saying, or am I thinking Shrewsbury? You see, Andrew, when all these cons start blurring together, this is what happens, man. You see, it's the occupational hazard, is that? So there we go. Right. The guests that were there, incredibly high quality. I mean, you can't look at that roster and not think that this is just a very impressive lineup indeed.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you start getting names like Zachary Levi and David Tennant and Matt Smith on the same day, those two people, by the way, and a whole host of wrestling guests as well. And, you know, just people who you wouldn't normally see at a convention as well. There was a few first timers, like James Ransone was there, who from It Chapter 2, you know, there's somebody who has never done a convention before, as far as I'm aware, but he was there. And then you had people who, people like Clive Mantle as well. You know, there was just an array of guests, like people who you saw at every convention. They were kind of there, but not all the time. That was kind of nice. Like they weren't inundated with people who you could see in your back garden or something. It really was the big guests. And, you know, like Alex Kingston was there and people like that. And I'm like, these are impressive names. These are really impressive names. And I have to say, I thought prices were quite reasonable, to be honest. What I would maybe suggest for next time is if they can put the prices on the website or put them on the board at the front of the line rather than on the board behind, written in pen. That would help.
Yeah, that might be good. I mean, they did actually have some printed out prices, but it was on A4 sheets and it was just kind of stuck to the back. I think that's just more a case of you do hear of conventions where it's the agents that are determining the prices almost on the day, and we have seen examples where they change the prices pretty much as the person has arrived at the table. But that's just down to the agents, and I don't think you can kind of get around that, unfortunately, without a real overhaul of the convention layout. Let's have a quick look if there's any other comments. Andrew Dickinson, surprised Zach wasn't pulled to go to Brazil for Shazam. This is true, considering that DC did do a big presentation at Brazil and announced Shazam 2, the official announcement for that film, and Zach Levi didn't say a word. But there we go. You know, we'll not hold that against him, the swine. But there we go. Prices need LED signs. That's money. I mean, that's a whole bunch of screens being put into place, and that's money. I don't think that would go down, because the one thing I kind of guessed, and when I see media cons, there is, which this definitely was. This was not a Comic Con. There were some comic guests there, but it was literally count them on one hand. This is a media con, and you have that sliding scale between a pure industrial money extraction exercise all the way down to something which has some character, some love for its fans, and a real family kind of vibe to it, while still extracting money from the attendees. I find that there is that universal constant that they will only spend as much as they possibly need to and not much else. Their own outlay they keep it to a bare minimum. They don't pay for the experience in the main. It's more about the just Pokemon. Got to catch them all. I got to get this auto, this photo op. I've got to get this interaction. I've got to see this guest. Tick them off the list. Yada yada yada. That's just those cons, and I'm not going to begrudge anyone that actually does that. but there are ways for conventions to augment the experience and make it an experience which encourages people to come back. There was some I don't know. I was about to say there was some outlay from Wales Comic Con, but not an over extension of that money paid out. So you did see branding, but it was on the screens internal, built into the building. So that's how you saw some branding, but there were no banners. There were no things over doorways. You kind of had to. You got the booklet. You saw the map, and you worked it out for yourself. And I can understand that you don't want to spend more than you have to, but then that's the thing that creates an experience. I mean, what did you make of the actual vendors? Because there were actually more vendors there than I expected there to be.
Yeah, it's a good point. There was actually. There was some vendors there where I was like, I'm not sure why they're here. These don't fit in at all. But then the vendors were, you know, there was nothing different. There was nothing that stood out at all. It all seemed to be the same types of vendors that were there that you would see at a million other shows in the UK. But they seem to be relatively busy, I've got to say. You know, I mean, even from the off, as I said, I was in at 10 past 10. There was people browsing stalls. It got busier and busier, and people were looking around. Yeah, I mean, you know, look, if you're a vendor, you're a vendor. That's the name of the game, selling the goods. And I imagine probably most of them went home quite merrily, to be honest with you, with a bit of money in the pocket. That, you know, there was some stalls I saw that were selling t-shirts for like £5, and I'm like, you can't buy a £5 t-shirt anywhere apart from at this convention.
The prices were very good, actually. I mean, I went to I mean, I am a comics guy, so I did go to the comics artist, and I also did check out a couple of the stalls that were selling comics. And considering that there were books for like £2 and £2.50, which you don't usually see at a comics convention. Usually the prices put up rather nicely. No, yeah, there was some. It was nicely affordable, but I think that was just down to the vendors themselves rather than an enforcement from Wales Comic Con as an organisation. Let's talk about any kind of. No, I want to keep with the positives. I mean, we're at past now. Let's stick with the positives for about 5-10 minutes, and then let's talk about things that did niggle. I did quite like the Q&A room. I thought that was a nice, comfortable space, considering that you had the, it was almost like an arena layout in that you had your stage, you had a nice big screen above, you had some nice seating, and then a ramped area at the back so people at the back could see what they needed to see. But it wasn't recorded or live streamed, but there were a couple of sites that have put panels up, so you can see them online. I think it's Geek Stop is one that did recording of most of the panels. The hosts may have been a little bit ill-prepared, but they kind of got on with it. And to be honest, the guests are there are what you're there to see anyway. So, for example, the DC Universe panel, I wasn't overly impressed by the panel host, but that's just myself. And to be fair, you're not there to see Joe Muggins up there with the microphone. You're there to see Zachary Levi. You're there to see Donald Logue. You're there to see Matt Ryan. You're there to see the guests. And and Zachary Levi, you give him a microphone, and he's incredibly gregarious and charming. So no, that's the kind of thing that I saw when I went in the Doctor Who panel. Alex Kingston, you give her a microphone and she's up and running. Yeah, it's more a case of you're there to the guests, and you can't complain about that. I think they could have used some sections of the space a little bit better. There was a lot of sitting around on carpets. There was nowhere for people to sit per se, so there was lots of people just finding wherever they could. So there could have been a little bit more space management. But again, this is year one. They are learning how to use that space, and I'm certain there'll be a whole bunch of people that will just dissect the weekend and make it better. You guys should be consultants for new Comic Cons. I've talked about this to a bunch of people because we could always turn around and say, oh, well, if we were running a con, we do this, this, and this. Grass is always greener, kids. I guarantee if we ran a con, it would nosedive into the ground like a goddamn dart. So who knows? But I mean, yeah, I think we're providing constructive comments here on this one. For yourself, Mark, any other positives that you saw from your experience on the Saturday?
Yeah, the food area, because people kind of forget that you have to eat, and the fact that there was a rather large food area upstairs, which wasn't that well signposted, I've got to say, but just by chance discovering it, I'm like, oh, this is actually really nice up here. Like, you could go up and sit down, and it was sort of away from the hustle and bustle, and it was really quiet up there as well. Even though it was directly above the room, it was really quiet. So I was quite pleased that there was a food place that you could go to and just sit down, have some food, take a breather and whatever else. And you could walk around upstairs. As you said, Leonard, the room where they had the panels was very nice, very big. And you could walk a bit past there as well. They had a VIP lounge, and just you could stretch your legs. That was the thing. Like, when you're in the main room, you're sort of shuffling a bit because, you know, people are in the way and wherever else. You want to stretch your legs a little bit. Go upstairs. There was loads of room. It was quite interesting, actually, to see those places. So, I mean, I had...
Still extortionate, but that's a convention center for you.
That's gonna listen. You're a captive audience wherever you go. If you go to a gig or if you go to a convention, they're gonna bunk the prices up. You know, it's just the way it is. Listen, I paid £3 for a small bottle of water at Wembley Arena last week, so you know that's the prices that we pay.
Yeah.
But
I did quite like that the staff recognised that there was this big long queue, and they got a member of staff to put some portions of chips and some cheeseburgers in kind of like a. Do you know what this is showing my age. Albatross from Monty Python. It was the last going Albatross. I'll get your Albatross. It was a last going round with the tray, or even like the old cinema with the tray on the neck, and so like hawking cheeseburgers and chips from this tray. But she was walking down the aisle and kind of going, okay, if you want this, instead of just lining up, hey, grab some food and do it. There were people just diving in. It was great. No, it was a nice area, and like you say, yeah, it was nicely quiet, and you could. It wasn't ever oppressive when it came to volume. It didn't ever feel too much.
Yeah, agreed. It felt like there was space, because you can be at a Comic-Con and it feel overwhelming, but that didn't feel overwhelming at all.
Yeah, I agree. I spoke to a couple of vendors. Like I say, I went down to the comics area. Grant Perkins was there. You also had Gary Erskine as well. Two people who know the convention circuit. Gary, I mean, if you wanted to ask somebody who could be a consultant at Comic-Con, Gary Erskine is that man. And he was talking about Wales Comic-Con at Wrexham, where you could have your table, and 6 foot away from you could be one of the major guests of the convention, which meant it just turned into a real nightmare for space. This was open. There was places for people to move. No one felt congested, and I really enjoyed and appreciated that. If we look to some of the negatives, like I say, it is down to the experience. And I've mentioned on this on Twitter and on social media about the tone and the tenor and the personality of a convention. It's that which will encourage brand loyalty. It's that which will get people to come back. Admittedly, with some media cons, like I say, it is more of an industrial nature of getting the photo ops that you want. So there is that kind of element of some people will just be going whatever the setup just to get their photo ops. But for myself, for someone who wasn't going to spend any money on any of that, I wanted to know what the vibe and the personality of the convention was. It was a little bit muted because, like I say, there was very little in the way of branding around the room, and we've talked about that. So I did feel that perhaps the personality that the con had at Wrexham, in that it was everyone coming together to make the best of this space that they had taken over, this gymnasium. So they were improvising as they went to make the best out of that space. When you've moved to a dedicated convention space, you have to bring personality of a convention with you. Otherwise, it just turns into a flat experience, a standard convention. And there were times I was walking around and thinking, this could be any other showmasters. This could be any other MCM. This could be any other convention. And the best conventions out there are the ones that provide a voice and a personality. So certainly for branding, for myself, that was one thing that was slightly lacking. Yourself, Mark, in terms of any things that really did stick under in your throat?
Only the two. Obviously, the entrance, trying to work out where that entrance was and everything else. So, you know, that could do with that. And two, more cash points. There was one cash point in the convention center and everybody was queuing for it. And that blocked the stairs. So they're going to need
And
more cash points.
died, by all accounts.
Oh, did it really?
Yes.
Ooh, yes, it was in the wrong place. It was right by the stairs, so people couldn't get past. So they're going to need more cash points. But, you know, look, here's the thing. Year one, you know, this is Wales Comic Con 2.0, whatever they want to call it. I thought, on the whole, they did a very good job.
Yeah, I totally agree. I enjoyed myself. I had a great. I mean, I would not have stuck around till 5 o'clock, doors closed. I also quite liked as well, by all accounts, a number of the guests recognized that people had been inconvenienced by some line management, or they were there till the very end, and they were signing way beyond. Apparently, Alex Kingston was signing till about 7 o'clock on the Saturday evening. I took a photo of Erica Durance and Tom Welling at something like 20 past 6. The doors 20 past 5, sorry, on the Sunday. Admittedly, Erica Durance noticed and okay, fine, whatever. But at the end of the day, they were there and they recognized that there were people that were wanting to meet them, and they had traveled some way to get there. So they were they weren't just diving out the door the first opportunity. So that was nice, and that's when guests also recognize or invited guests recognize that this is a show that is restarting. It is definitely like I liked that 2.0. This is year one. It is definitely, it's got its crowd because it's got the brand recognition of Wales Comic Con, but at the end of the day, this was a brand new show, and I equate it very much like Thought Bubble. Thought Bubble is a pure comics convention and had a very similar setup at the Leeds location, at the Armories, and also in the town centre. In that they were trying to accommodate this ever-growing convention in a space which wasn't built for it. So people were queuing outside, people getting cold, getting very wet. At which point they've moved it to Harrogate, which is a dedicated convention space with all the infrastructure in place required, toilets, all enclosed, all the rooms as required, and you walk into the building and you don't have to step outside again. That's what you got with Wales. It's a new beginning, and it's encouraging for a number of reasons. It just shows that a convention can grow and adapt instead of just settling for what it's doing and just kind of taking the money and running. We're not that was the fear, I think, when we've talked over the last couple of years. The fear was we're getting to a point with the conventions that they're just taking the money and running because they're just feeling that the thing could just burst at any moment. This isn't. This was Wales adapting, evolving, and becoming a new show. I thought that was very encouraging for me.
Yeah, the same with me, Leonard. I've got to say, I'm interested to see where they go from here. If they can move it a bit closer to me, that would be great. I'll be honest, because the journey back was hellish. But you know, hey, these are what we do for these things. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it grows. We have seen in the past conventions that have arrived and done things very differently and actually sort of stoked the fires of the convention landscape, and created some different things. And then they've gone by the wayside because they've got too big, or they've forgotten what made them big
Yes.
and why they had fans in the first place. No names mentioned, but we all know who I'm talking about. I wonder, you know, I hope Wales don't go that way, but I think the fact that they had that grounding in the smaller venue before moving to this should serve them in a very good way. I'm looking forward to seeing what they are going to do next year and how they're going to top the guest list. There's a big guest list to top.
That's going to be interesting because, yeah, it was, like I say, it was bloody impressive. It was bloody impressive. Yeah, absolutely. Hello there, Dan Berry, who's watching on Periscope. Thank you very much for joining us. Michael P, once again, that you guys should be consultants for new Comic Cons. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew Dickinson is talking about his convention and how it's about creating an experience for the fans. They're saying that's how we run ours, and that's understandable. And also, will they rebrand without Wales in the title eventually? I don't think they will. I think it's too strong a brand. No, I don't think so. I think if the thing moved to Nottingham, if it moved to, they can't get away with it. Telford, like I say, it's just on that border. So no, I don't see that the need for it. But there we go. No, Wales Comic Con, it's very strong as it is. So there we go. Listen, Mark, thank you very much indeed for joining us and talking about Wales Comic Con. We gave it a thumbs up and definitely looking forward to next year.
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. Excellent stuff. Once again, thank you very much indeed for joining us for this incidental episode. Weren't able to do a show on Sunday because of the travel back, and unfortunately won't be doing a show this Sunday either, which would have been our 15th of December show. Unfortunately, we are now in that period of the year where, as a working DJ, I have to work. It pays the bills, and it's something that I need to do to represent what I do and as my daytime job. I have got a job on the Sunday, so I won't be doing a show this Sunday, which means we've got 2 more to go. On the 22nd of December, we are going to be having a special guest, Billy Tukey, joining us to talk about his last year in conventions, because he's been doing a fair number this year. He's been pushing certainly this new Kickstarter, which has been done very well indeed with the celebration of the anniversary of his creation, So we're going to be talking to Billy Tukey on the 22nd. And then on the 29th, this is where I've asked Mark, and now we'll see if we can get him on camera to confirm it. Would you be up for joining us as an end-of-year wrap-up, sir?
I'm busy. I'm washing my hair that day.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. He's polishing his glasses, and he can't, unfortunately, he can't make it. Are you going to Panto?
It's behind you.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Are you in Panto? Am I going to be the arse of the donkey again?
Yes, possibly. But we can swap on the last night. It's fine. It's fine. It's not a problem.
Is that what it is?
Yes. No. If listen, I should be around. It just depends on if I've eaten all the turkey and all the chocolate and everything. And if I look incredibly fat on camera all of a sudden, then I might not be doing it.
Hey, listen, I will be.
Chins up, gentlemen. Chins up.
Chins up, absolutely. I'm going to do my best actually to get a bunch of people on board. I'd like to get Michael P on board. I'd like to get Dan, perhaps. I'd like to get maybe 5 or 6 people to talk about the year in conventions, because last year, when we were wrapping things up, I wasn't too sure how 2020 was going to go. I genuinely thought this could be the year where the bubble bursts, where we could see audience drops, where we could see people just abandoning the whole idea of fandoms. Things had gotten too toxic. Things had just kind of built up too far, and it just, I was really not in a great place last year to look forward to 2020. I didn't know where it was going to go. This year's been a pleasant surprise, and we're going to talk about that on the show on the 29th. So there we go. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. If you did go to Wales Comic Con, let us know what your experiences were in the comments below. If there's anything that you experienced, anything that you felt could have been improved, anything you felt worked really well, let's look at the positives. Let us know what you think in the comments, and yeah, by all means, jump in on any of our social medias. Mark, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter, Mark_Searby, website marksearby.com. Every Friday on Phoenix FM at lunchtime, and on BBC Northampton at around 4:30, and then Sundays on BBC Suffolk, all with film reviews. And you can find my Al Pacino book on Amazon and all of those places. And also you can now pre-order my new book all about Rick Mayall, who is a comedy genius. That's up, and it's out in January.
Was a comedy genius. Sorry.
Still anyway. Is.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. For myself, you can find me on the social medias at Englishman SDCC. As always, we're going to do our best to cover as much as we can in the new year, leading towards San Diego Comic Con 2020, which I will be attending. Yes, looking forward to it. And yeah, 2 more shows to go. Live on the 22nd with Billy Tukey, which is also going to be our little bit of a Christmas for Nerds show. We're going to be looking at things that we can all get up to over the festive season and the festive week. And on the 29th of December, the year to come and the year gone by. So thank you very much indeed for Mark for agreeing to take part in that one, if he's not stuffed with turkey by that point. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. And for myself and Mark, we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.